Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renuka and with me is Saira Mujtaba bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Economic stability and confidence to be at the heart of the new agenda, announces UK's new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. India strongly supports development priorities of Africa, says Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan. Competition Commission of India imposes more than 936 crore rupees penalty on Google for anti-competitive practices in relation to its Play Store policies. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says the country needs less bureaucracy and fewer rules to fight corruption. Two suspected Chinese intelligence officers charged with attempt to obstruct a U.S. criminal investigation of Chinese tech giant Huawei. Shares of Chinese firms listed in the U.S. slump on concerns that President Xi Jinping will continue with his ideology-driven approach. A Russian court rejects appeal by U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner against a 9-year jail term for drugs charges. And in cricket at the Men's T20 World Cup, Australia beat Sri Lanka by 7 wickets. And now the news in detail. Rishi Sunak officially became the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom on Tuesday. The former Finance Minister met King Charles III at Buckingham Palace, who accepted the resignation of Liz Truss. In his first speech as Prime Minister, Mr. Sunak said the UK is facing a profound economic crisis and he would put the economic stability and confidence at the heart of the new government's agenda.
I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This will mean difficult decisions to come. But you saw me during COVID doing everything I could to protect people and businesses with schemes like furlough. There are always limits, more so now than ever, but I promise you this, I will bring that same compassion to the challenges we face today.
Commenting on his predecessor Liz Truss's tenure, Mr. Sunak said that while unintentional mistakes were made,
I want to pay tribute to my predecessor Liz Truss. She was not wrong to want to improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim, and I admired her restlessness to create change. But some mistakes were made, not born of ill will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite, in fact, but mistakes nonetheless. And I have been elected as leader of my party and your Prime Minister, in part, to fix them. And that work begins immediately.
Speaking to the public outside number 10 Downing Street, he remarked that trust is earned and together they can achieve incredible things.
I stand here before you, ready to lead our country into the future, to put your needs above politics, to reach out and build a government that represents the very best traditions of my party. Together, we can achieve incredible things. We will create a future worthy of the sacrifices so many have made and fill tomorrow and every day thereafter with hope.
Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak has formed his cabinet. Jeremy Hunt will remain as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He took on the role after Kwasi Kwarteng resigned from the post. Hunt in a tweet wrote that he is honoured to serve the country. Dominic Raab will return to the roles of Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary. James Cleverly will stay as Foreign Secretary and Simon Hart will be Chief Whip. Sula Braverman has been reappointed as the Home Secretary a week after resigning from the same role. Grant Shapps has replaced Jacob Rees-Mogg as the Business Secretary. Sunak's former leadership rival Penny Mordaunt will remain as Leader of the House of Commons. Gillian Keegan has been appointed as Education Secretary. Mr. Sunak, at the age of 42, is the youngest British leader in more than 200 years. He is expected to immediately begin appointing a cabinet and getting to grips with an economy sliding towards recession. The third Conservative Prime Minister this year, he will also try to unite a governing party that is riven with divisions. He was selected as leader of the governing Conservative Party on Monday. Indian Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan participated at the opening session of Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security in Africa in Senegal. The event was inaugurated by President of Senegal, Macky Sall, in Dakar on Monday. Presidents of Angola and Cabo Verde, several ministers and high-level dignitaries were present on the occasion. In a tweet, Mr. Muralidharan said, the forum has become an important place for policy discussions on sovereignty and security aspects of Africa. He said, India strongly supports the development priorities of Africa guided by 10 principles laid down by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Ugandan Parliament in 2018. This is the first time that India is participating in the forum at a ministerial level. The Dakar International Forum has become a key event for decision makers involved in Africa. The participation of Mr. Muralidharan in the Dakar Forum underscores the importance that India attaches to the peace, security and developmental issues concerning Africa. This visit is also in line with India's policy to intensify and deepen its engagement with Africa.
The Competition Commission of India on Tuesday imposed more than 936 crore rupees penalty on Google for anti-competitive practices in relation to its Play Store policies. It also directed Google to modify its conduct within a defined timeline. The CCI said that based on an assessment, the department found Google to be dominant in the markets for licensable operating system for smart mobile devices and market for app stores for Android smart mobile operating system in the country. The CCI has also examined the allegations of exclusion of rival UPI apps as effective payment options on Play Store. The CCI found that Google Pay has been integrated with intent flow methodology, whereas other UPI apps can be used through collect flow methodology. In continuation of the advisory issued by the embassy on the 19th of this month, all Indian citizens in Ukraine are advised to immediately leave Ukraine by available means. Some Indian nationals have already left Ukraine pursuant to earlier advisory. They may contact the embassy at the following numbers for any guidance or assistance if required to travel to the border. The numbers are +380 933 55 9958, +380 6359 178811, and +380 6787 45945. They may refer to the embassy website for available options for border crossing.
United States has appointed Elizabeth Jones to serve as Charge d'Affaires in New Delhi. According to a media note issued by U.S. State Department on Monday, Jones recently served as the coordinator for Afghan relocation efforts. She previously served as Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasia, Acting Assistant Secretary of State for the Near East, and Ambassador to Kazakhstan. Ambassador Jones carries the highest Foreign Service rank of Career Ambassador. In India, she will join U.S. Embassy and Consulate insurgency teams in advancing and expanding the partnership between governments and people, a partnership that Secretary Blinken has called one of the most consequential in the world. In today's Hotspot section, we discuss on the Indian Space Research Organization's strides in space. It is worth to recall that the ISRO launched its first dedicated commercial mission of Launch Vehicle Mark III LVM-3M2 satellite successfully on Sunday from the Satish Dhawan Space Center, Sriharikota in Andhra Pradesh. Let us listen to an interview with science communicator Pallava Bagla and Chetan Chauhan, journalist.
Pallav, what is the biggest achievement of ISRO's launch? It is a commercial wing of ISRO which have ventured into this space for the first time.
There are many new facets of the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle Mark III, which is India's heavyweight launcher, which is now rechristened as Launch Vehicle Mark III. Yes, you rightly said it is commercial launch. It launched 36 satellites for OneWeb, which is going to provide internet through satellites. But this is also the first commercial launch for the launch vehicle Mark III. So it marks the beginning of India's heavyweight launcher, which sometimes, because of its capability, I have christened as Bahubali. It is now into the commercial market, and with this successful launch, this particular rocket is now available to compete for launches across the world. This launch was very significant because India, in a way, snatched this launch out of the hands of many other competitors and moved very quickly to grab this launch. So there were many firsts in this launch, and India has come out shining well on Diwali. It's a wonderful gift for the nation to have a very large rocket go up from Sriharikota, perform its job with precision, and give India a very happy Diwali gift.
Do you think that after this, many other countries will join hands with the commercial wing of ISRO and launch more such satellites?
In the past, whenever geopolitical situations have arisen, India has not been able to grab those opportunities. Today, what I see is a very nimble Indian Space Research Organization. When this geopolitical situation arose and OneWeb was kind of left without a launcher from the Russian launch market, the Indians offered the launcher, or OneWeb came to them, and they were able to provide everything in a matter of 3 or 4 months. So it shows several things. One, that India is very nimble in the geopolitical situation to grab the opportunity. Two, it also shows that India's rocket scientists are capable of delivering a rocket at a quick turnaround time. So overall, it augurs very well as a debut into the commercial launch market for India using the launch vehicle Mark III. So this particular launcher, which has now been redesignated from Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle Mark III to Launch Vehicle Mark III, is essentially because it's a versatile rocket which can do many things. It can launch low Earth orbit satellites like it has done for OneWeb. It can launch communication satellite into the Geosynchronous Satellite Launch slot. It can also send interplanetary missions because it was this particular rocket, a variant of this, which was used for launching India's Chandrayaan 2 mission. So it is a versatile rocket. It is a frugal rocket. It is cost effective. And I'm sure here onwards, we will see many players coming to India because India offers a very competitive rate for launching satellites into space.
Pallab, also with this, the Chandrayaan 3 launch, which is expected next year, this has been seen as a precursor to that. And with this, I think the confidence of the scientific community for the launch will be much, much more that Chandrayaan 3, India will be able to launch it successfully in the next year. So how do you think that launch is sort of a launch pad for Chandrayaan 3?
In Chandrayaan 3, it was actually the lander and the rover which failed. So the rocket did its job. It sent the orbiter along with the lander and rover in its womb into the correct orbit towards moon. The orbiter continues to function around the moon. Now, Chandrayaan 3 is going to be launched using the same launch vehicle Mark III. And in this particular launch, the orbiter is going to be a minimal, but the lander and rover have been made more robust. Yes, so Chandrayaan 3 is a launch which India and the world is going to look forward to. But we should wait because still the lander and the rover both are cooking in the stable of the Indian Space Research Organization. And when they are ready, and now there is competing interest for the rocket. See, there are not just science missions, there will also be commercial launches which will come the way for the Indian Space Research Organization to provide a slot. So there will be competing interests. So let us see how the Indian Space Research Organization can accommodate the launch of Chandrayaan 3. They are saying it will be sometime in 2023, but let's wait and watch.
Pallab, can you tell us more about Aditya 1 also? Because it is also one of the major projects for ISRO in the coming years, especially 2023.
Sure. Aditya is India's satellite which will study the sun. It will be India's first satellite to study the sun. It's not a satellite which will go all the way to the sun. It will be launched somewhere close to the earth, and from there it will keep a sharp eye on the sun to understand the science and the way solar storms emerge from the sun. So Aditya-1 is an important mission for India, not just to study science, but also to keep track of the solar storms, which can at times create havoc in our communication systems and in our power system. So Aditya-1 is one scientific mission which the Indian Space Research Organization is gearing to launch. So there is a thought process that it will be launched soon. But again, we'll have to wait and watch what the exact slot is. But this will really be India's first mission to try and understand some of the science of the sun.
Pallav, I think the ISRO's journey in the last 7-8 years have been extremely marvelous, and they have moved their feet very fast in the space research area sector and as well as the commercial exploitation of the space. Because as you know, coming years, the satellite, the space will be a major area of commercial venture because the satellites are being launched, which will provide a seamless internet connection. Also in the future, the mobile phones likely to be linked with the satellites. So how do you think that the ISRO is ready for the journey? So if you can tell our listeners how the ISRO has progressed in 7-8 years and what is the future plan of ISRO?
ISRO is an organization which I call is an island of excellence. And whichever government has been in power has supported the space program. And of late, we have seen once ISRO had come of age, meaning once they had satellite capability of making satellite, capability of making rockets, launching them, the next stage was that India should make them available in the commercial space market, which has been the thrust of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. There was this opening up of the space sector, which happened a couple of years ago. And in that, the thrust has been that not just the government, but the private sector also participate in launching satellite assets. So plenty of startups, I'm told about 100 plus startups are gearing up to do different activities. Similar way, many private organizations are now waiting to tap into the opportunity to use the extremely good facilities created at taxpayers' money at the Indian Space Research Organization. So all of this is essentially leading up to the point where India should become a competitive player in the multi-billion-dollar satellite and rocket market of the world. Today, it is dominated by players from America, Russia, and Europe. And India is now making an entry. And let's not forget, China offers a lot of competition as well. So India's rockets and satellites are made at very minimal cost. So the cost of launching into space from India would be very competitive. And the Indian rocket port at Sriharikota is also placed so close to the equator that you get very precise and good orbits if there is a correct launch from Sriharikota into space. So there are many things which are in favor of India, and the time is right for India to tap into the large commercial space market. We also have the workhorse rocket, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, being readied, where it will be now fabricated with the support of the private sector, and one will see launches being done by a consortium of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Larsen & Toubro. So this would be another step towards active commercialization of India's rockets.
Thanks a lot, Pallav.
Thanks a lot.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Italy's new Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has laid out her government's policy aims on Tuesday. In a speech to Parliament's lower chamber of deputies, she said the motto of the government will be, "Don't disturb those who want to do something." Italy needs less bureaucracy and fewer rules, a recipe she said would help fight corruption. 45-year-old Meloni, who is the first female Prime Minister of Italy, criticized the European Union for not always being ready for challenges, notably the dramatic energy crisis now threatening households and businesses. but she pledged that her 4-day-old coalition government, which includes right-wing and centre-right allies, would stay loyal to EU accords while working for changes to some of them, including on monetary stability. Maloney, in her 70-minute speech ahead of a confidence vote required of all new governments, said that she is a practical person. In the United States, 2 suspected Chinese intelligence officers have been charged with attempting to obstruct a U.S. criminal investigation of Chinese tech giant Huawei. The U.S. Justice Department announced on Monday that they were offering bribes to someone they thought could provide inside information. The defendants are accused of paying tens of thousands of dollars in digital currency, along with cash and jewelry, to a U.S. official they thought they had recruited as an asset. But the person was actually a double agent working for the FBI, the department said. That prosecution, as well as 2 other cases involving Chinese operators, was highlighted at a news conference. The event featured the heads of both the FBI and the Justice Department, a rare joint presence reflecting a concerted American show of force against Chinese intelligence efforts. Washington has long accused Beijing of meddling in U.S. political affairs and stealing secrets and intellectual property.
Shares of Chinese firms listed in the U.S. have slumped on concerns that President Xi Jinping will continue with his ideology-driven approach at the cost of economic growth. Chinese technology firms Alibaba and Baidu fell by over 12% in New York on Monday. Investors fear the world's second-largest economy will be held back by its tough coronavirus restrictions. E-commerce platform Pinduoduo plunged by almost 25%. It comes after China's ruling Communist Party wrapped up its twice-a-decade conference on Sunday. During the week-long event, President Xi, who secured a historic third term in charge, offered no timeline for the easing of the country's strict measures to slow the spread of the coronavirus. On Tuesday, stock markets in Hong Kong and mainland China edged a little lower after sliding the previous day. Hong Kong's benchmark Hang Seng Index lost more than 6% on Monday, while the Shanghai Composite closed to 2% lower. A Russian court has rejected an appeal by U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner against her 9-year jail term for drugs charge. The court near Moscow upheld the sentence, with the state prosecutor calling it fair. Griner and her lawyers had asked for acquittal or at least a reduction in her sentence, which they said was disproportionate to the offence and at odds with Russian judicial practice. The presiding judge said the verdict was upheld without changes except for the counting of time served in pre-trial detention as part of the sentence. The double Olympic winner apologized for her honest mistake in her appeal hearing via video link. 31-year-old Griner was convicted in August of smuggling and possessing cannabis oil. Griner, who is considered one of the world's top players, was detained in February at an airport near Moscow when vape cartridges containing cannabis oil were found in her luggage. She had come to Russia to play club basketball during the US off-season.
In Bangladesh, Cyclone Chandrayaan crossed over the country by Tuesday noon. After it started landfall around 9 in the night on Monday, the eye of the cyclone made landfall in Bangladesh around midnight. Prasar Bharati's special correspondent in Dhaka has filed the latest story from Dhaka.
Cyclone Chandrayaan damaged more than 10,000 houses, 6,000 hectares of cropland and 1,000 fishing enclosures when it hit Bangladesh. Though reports about death are still coming in, official news agency BSS reported that 12 people were killed in the cyclone. Power supply for more than 80 lakh people was disrupted by the cyclone, which is now being restored. The government had evacuated close to 1 million people from the 15 coastal districts as the cyclone advanced towards Bangladesh over the last 2 days. Most of the people have now returned to their homes as the cyclone weakened very quickly. Flight services from the 3 airports in the coastal areas at Chattogram, Cox's Bazar and Barishal have resumed from noon on Tuesday. Rajesh Jha for AIR News, Dhaka.
U.S. President Joe Biden has thanked the Asian American community in the U.S. for making Diwali celebrations a joyous part of American culture. He greeted more than 1 billion Hindus, Jains, Sikhs and Buddhists celebrating the Festival of Lights in the United States, India and around the world on the occasion of Diwali on Monday. During a reception to celebrate Diwali at the White House, Mr. Biden said that we are honored to host you. This was the first Diwali reception of this scale in the White House that was ever to be held. On to sports. Defending champions Australia defeated Sri Lanka by 7 wickets in their T20 World Cup Super 12 stage Group 1 match in Perth on Tuesday. Chasing a target of 158 runs, Australia scored the required runs, losing 3 wickets in just 16.3 overs. An unbeaten 59 over 18 balls by Marcus Stoinis, studded with 4 boundaries and 6 sixes, was the highlight of the Australian innings. Earlier put into bat, Sri Lanka made 157 runs in the stipulated 20 overs, losing 6 wickets. For Sri Lanka, Patlam Nisanka top scored with 40 runs, while Chadwick Josh contributed an unbeaten 38 runs. Hazelwood, Pat Cummins, Michelle Stark, Ashton Agar and Glenn Maxwell bagged a wicket each for the Aussies. Australia lost their final game of the tournament to New Zealand, while Sri Lanka beat Ireland by 9 wickets in their opening game of the tournament.
In French Open badminton, Indian pair of Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty defeated French pair of Christo Popov and Thomas Junior Popov in the men's doubles in Paris on Tuesday. The Indian pair lost the first game 19-21, but they bounced back to beat the French pair in the next games 21-9, 21-13. Earlier, India did not start at a good note as Indian pair of Ishan Bhatnagar and Tanisha Krasto lost to Japanese pair of Naru Shinoya and Kyoi Yamashita 13-21, 16-21 in the mixed doubles. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Financial Times in a lead item says Rishi Sunak issues stark warning for UK as he becomes Prime Minister. The Guardian writes that Giorgia Meloni speaks of burden of being Italy's first female Prime Minister. The Wall Street Journal reports that Israeli forces have killed 5 Palestinians in raid on militant group. The Washington Post, quoting a report, says climate change threatens emperor penguins with extinction. Japan Times informs that Shigeyuki Gota tapped as Japan's new economic revitalization minister. South China Morning Post writes that Hong Kong to allow full-day classes at primary schools if 70% of students double-jabbed, similar rules for secondary sessions eased to 90% with 2 doses.
In some more news, WhatsApp said service on the popular chat app has been restored following a brief outage on Tuesday that left people around the world complaining that they couldn't send or receive messages. WhatsApp was back to normal after 2 hours of suspension. A WhatsApp spokesperson said the company has fixed the issue and apologized for any inconvenience. Meta, previously known as Facebook, bought WhatsApp in 2014. It's widely popular, especially outside of the US, where many people use it for everyday communication.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Economic stability and confidence to be at the heart of the new agenda, announces UK's new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. India strongly supports development priorities of Africa, says Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan. Competition Commission of India imposes more than 936 crore rupees penalty on Google for anti-competitive practices in relation to its Play Store policies. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says the country needs less bureaucracy and fewer rules to fight corruption. 2 suspected Chinese intelligence officers charged with attempt to obstruct a U.S. criminal investigation of Chinese tech giant Huawei. Shares of Chinese firms listed in the U.S. slump on concerns that President Xi Jinping will continue with his ideology-driven approach. A Russian court rejects appeal by U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner against her 9-year jail term for drugs charge. And in cricket, at the men's T20 World Cup, Australia beat Sri Lanka by 7 wickets. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from United Kingdom. with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.